For more on developments in the cyber tech world, I'm joined by John Casaretto in Denver, Colorado. He's the founder and president of Black-Cert, a cybersecurity company. John, a lot to get to. I want to ask you about Google in just a moment, but first, your reaction to reports of yet another global cyber attack. Are we any closer to finding out who's behind this latest one in Ukraine and Russia?
You know, there hasn't been a tremendous amount of success in finding out who's been behind a lot of these major attacks, but it's put a lot of these businesses, a lot of these governments on edge and in search of better protecting themselves and finding ways to deal with these challenges in the cybersecurity world.
Any way of knowing if this latest attack is perhaps connected to that WannaCry ransomware attack last month that hit Europe pretty hard and made its way around the world?
There has been some forensic work that indicates it is related to some of the same weaknesses. And once one of these exploits gets out, there are many copycats, especially in these black markets where this information gets out. So the approach, the technology, all these things get repeated. And of course, to this benefit that they're seeking to get this ransomware and get paid in return for creating this malware, which infects computers, locks people out, and they don't really have a choice but to deal with it somehow. And ideally, a company, an organization has done the preemptive work of protecting themselves as much as possible to try to avoid these kinds of things. But, you know, unfortunately, these things happen, and this is why these things start to emerge as quickly as they do and cause the chaos that we've seen.
So let's talk motive here. You touched on it. Is it really about the money, or is there really something that hackers want to prove? And then my second question to that is, why haven't governments or companies, why haven't they been able to prevent attacks like these?
Well, you know, there's a ton of motivation here that could be at hand. Clearly, there's the money aspect. A lot of this has to do with bragging rights. The initial WannaCry exploit that was out there, really wasn't a ton of money involved that behind that whole thing. But this time around, I mean, they're kind of testing the market, I think, potentially with how that all came about. And now we're starting to see more waves of this come around. And I think that the response from a business and from the enterprise at large, you know, we're trying to deal with these things, and we're trying to do these things and be proactive in protecting against these issues. And ideally, some of these advanced technologies will do a lot in terms of detecting behaviors before they become a problem.
So behind the scenes, are companies and governments actively working to prevent from being hacked, or is this really just a wake-up call for them?
Well, actually, both of those things are true. I mean, there are some organizations and companies that have done a lot in terms of shutting down a lot of these networks that are behind the proliferation of this software and the way that it gets out. Microsoft comes to mind pretty quickly. A number of other companies, of course, are keeping eyes on what's going on, and they get reports out really quickly in terms of how some of these malware exploits are actually taking control of these computers on a large scale. So, you know, there's a lot of challenges there still, and we will see how these responses improve over time.
John, quickly, I got to ask you about Google. Want to get your thoughts on this multi-billion-dollar fine. What does this all signal?
Well, there's a radical change. You know, in the past, things have favored big businesses, and you know, things were traditionally focused on the consumer, and in terms of, you know, looking to see if there was some type of price gouging and things like that. But this whole game is way different than the way people have expected this, because these large organizations like Amazon and Google, they've mastered this whole low price game. They've mastered the art of free and targeting and free shipping and all of those things. This is an intellectual shift that is a threat to these companies and how they do business. And $2 billion is a slap on the wrist, but there's a major power struggle at play. And you know, at the root of this all is data. Data is key, and it's all about pricing, search, you know, and protecting. And so what the EU is doing now is they're protecting small business, and they're stepping up in order to try to increase choice, to increase all of these issues like privacy, security, and of course, you know, the competition that's at hand that they're looking to encourage and protect these businesses and try to deal with Google's behavior and how, potentially that they have done some things that are unfair.
All right, John Casaretto in Denver, thank you for joining us.